Hello everyone and welcome to Old Timey Comics, where we go back through the past of superhero comics to check out all the good, the bad, and the absolutely ridiculous. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Today we're going back to August of 1962 to check out Amazing Fantasy number 15 to see the start of a Marvel classic, the first appearance and origin of Spider-Man. Immediately starting out on the cover, we've got the classic picture of Spider-Man swinging through the city, having just saved a bystander from something. Though honestly, the citizen looks less terrified of whatever situation he was in or of being so high up. Rather, he looks angry like he's going to throttle our hero for one reason or another. On the first page, there's a note from the staff going on about how Spider-Man will be different from any superhero character before him. And while that is true, I'm still stuck on the fact that apparently at the time, those in the business referred to them as long underwear characters. I think I can see why that didn't catch on. Anyway, we get a quick introduction to our main character, Peter Parker, and his social life. He's picked on by literally all his classmates we see in this issue. But he has a good life at home with his Uncle Ben and Aunt May, who helps him to a big plate of his favorite wheat cakes. Don't get too confused on that, it's just another word for pancakes, hotcakes, batter cakes, flapjacks, whatever you want to call them. Peter gets fantastic grades in school and thus his teachers like him, but if he ever tries to ask out a girl, he's brushed aside for dreamboats like school jock Flash Thompson. So it comes to be that Peter is heading to a science exhibit that afternoon, and while he does invite others, they tell him to scram, so poor Pete ends up going alone. The experiment he's come to see involves using some kind of machine to control radioactive rays. Wait, radioactive rays? And you're going to arc it between two machines? With no protective equipment for anyone in the room, and nothing shielding the machines to keep radiation from getting out or anything foreign from getting in? Well, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Oh look, a spider just happened to lower itself down into the open radioactive experiment. Always conduct experiments in a safe, sterile, and controlled environment, kids, especially those involving extreme radioactivity. Before it dies, the spider finds its way over to Peter and bites him on the hand. He describes to himself that the spider is literally burning and glowing, but decides the whole situation isn't important enough to share with anyone else in the room. Instead, he simply excuses himself and starts on his way back home. On the way back, he starts daydreaming and almost gets hit by a car, as the kids driving laugh about it and don't bother to look back to make sure they didn't hit Peter, because, near vehicular homicide is just a barrel of laughs. Thus, they don't notice that he's jumped 10 feet up the side of a building. Once he realizes what's happened, Peter continues to test his newly granted spider ability, showing off his strength and balance in addition to wall crawling. Once he's back down on the ground, Peter stumbles on an event offering a $100 prize, which you might scoff at that now, but in the 60s that would have the equivalent buying power of over $800 once you account for inflation. All someone had to do to win was last 3 minutes in the ring with Crusher Hogan, who's just the happiest darn wrestler you ever did see. Peter runs home and throws on a mask, not because he would get questions about how the puny science nerd got his fantastic abilities, but because he's worried about being a laughingstock if he fails. Glad he's got his priorities straight, though honestly he still looks pretty ridiculous. The match begins with an unnecessary and gratuitous butt shot of Hogan. Thanks, Mr. Ditko. While he just has to stay in the ring for 3 minutes in order to win, Peter decides to showboat a bit and gets Hogan to surrender by threatening to drop him from high above the ring. Your future hero, ladies and gentlemen. After the match, Peter's pulled aside and given an offer by one of the producers for the Ed Sullivan Show, because for some reason everybody just accepts that the match was legitimate and nobody's looking for wires or anything to explain how Peter dragged Hogan up that high. Peter rushes home to work on a legitimate Spider-Man costume, which his aunt and uncle actually walk in on, and yet they fail to notice the outfit Peter's clearly not even hiding. Not even a cursory, "Hey, what you doing, pal?" Peter also throws together his first pair of web shooters. Spider's got a web, right? And thus, Spider-Man becomes an overnight TV sideshow sensation, and the attention immediately goes to his head. As he makes his exit for the night, he sees a thief approaching, being pursued by a police officer. I'm actually curious about who decides to steal from a TV studio. I mean, what's there to take? And it doesn't look like the guy is actually carrying anything either. Peter refuses to intervene, and the perp makes it to the elevator, which apparently means he got away. Who would take an elevator if they're being pursued? And where's the officer's backup? Why doesn't the officer take the stairs? That's still faster than just about any elevator, especially in the 60s. Or why doesn't he maybe alert building security of the perp heading to the lobby so they can meet him there? We skip ahead a few weeks with a montage of Peter's performances as Spider-Man. Unfortunately, tragedy strikes as Peter arrives home to find a police car parked outside. The police inform him that his uncle's been shot and killed. Oh, but don't worry, they've cornered the guy responsible in the old abandoned Acme warehouse on the waterfront. Great job, officer. Tell the grieving kid exactly where to take his roaring rampage of revenge. Though it doesn't help that Peter also apparently happens to know the layout of the warehouse he's talking about, stating that a person could hold off an army in there. Did he go to play hide and seek there when he was little or something? After a quick web swing across town, Peter sneaks into the warehouse and confronts the man responsible, who's conveniently hiding his face to allow for the dramatic reveal that he's the same crook that Peter let go away weeks ago. Though if you look at his clothes, he's wearing the exact same outfit from before, just with a different color shirt underneath. An interesting way to maybe piece it together a couple panels early if the reader is paying attention. The weird thing about the reveal isn't the coincidence of Peter already knowing the perp, but that they put pupils on his mask to try and give him a look of surprise. But instead, it just kind of comes across as goofy and undermines a powerful moment. Personally, I think the dialogue would have done the job well enough on its own. We wrap up the comic as Peter leaves the man webbed up for the police and then walks off into the distance as the narration, rather than Uncle Ben, gives us the famous line that with great power there must also come great responsibility. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe to show your support. Have a character or story you'd like to see covered in an episode? Let me know in the comments. If you want to check out any stories for yourself, you can either purchase them digitally or through a subscription to Marvel Unlimited. See you guys next week for another episode of Old Timey Comics.